Hi, everyone. Welcome back and happy Wednesday. Today, Irene and I want to talk about rules surrounding break time. And interestingly, there is no federal break laws requirements for employers except for, the workers, except for the nursing mothers to express breast milk. But other than that, we sort of go back to the state regulations. And I really want to ask Irene to discuss the, state regulations specifically in New York.
Absolutely. So just like Jane said, we are relying on New York for those of us here in the state to for those meal breaks and any breaks that an employee can receive, and that's who gives us the guidance. So it is governed under the Department of Labor and its labor law, section 162, and it sets forth the meal breaks for employees and the requirements for those. So employees are entitled to a 30-minute lunch break between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. And that's for all shifts that are going to be longer than 6 hours. That would extend throughout that time as well. All employees are also entitled to another 20-minute break between 5 p.m. and 7 p.m. for any workday that extends and starts before 11 a.m. and ends after 7 p.m. as well.
Okay, great. Well, with that, I do have a question. So let's say I'm taking a lunch break, but I'm eating at my desk.
Okay, so that's where it gets very interesting because this question comes up all the time. Um, I do want to add one other thing. Aside from just the mandatory breaks, the state does say that any breaks of less than 20 minutes are not compensable. So the employee is not going to be compensated for any breaks that they take that are 20 minutes or less. However, that lunch period of those 30 minutes that they would take between that 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. that we talked about would be compensated. However, if the employee is working at their desk and they're doing any work at all, or let's say this is not a desk job, but any work is required to be done during those 30 minutes at all, the entire 30 minutes should be compensated as that lunch. Otherwise, it doesn't need to be compensated. But it's a very, very important part because the whole purpose of the law is to provide that break. And it should be a full 30-minute break. And if it's not, it should be fully compensated. I have a lot of clients that have found this very difficult to track. And some companies have resorted to just paying for lunch through because it's just so difficult to track if someone had to pick up a call, received an email that they answered during that time. And it becomes nearly impossible for the employer to be able to prove if there's ever a claim. So a lot of employers have had to just resort to paying all through lunch. But if it's a way in which it's an office setting where it's possible for it to be clocked in, clocked out, and you're able to know that the employee is not physically there, then you don't have to pay for that time.
Okay, thank you. But again, it gets tricky, like you said.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of my clients are also tracking time, and I know that the a lot of the breaks they just or the lunch they just end up paying for it.
Absolutely. I also wanted to mention remote employees as well, because I know that this sort of ties into everything we've been talking about the last few weeks with all the changes. And about 2 weeks ago, we talked about the remote changes and just making sure that all of the rules apply to remote employees as well. Well, the same would apply here. It's just that extra level of trickiness. How do you monitor a remote employee and make sure that at that time they weren't answering any emails? And so it does get very, very difficult for the employers to be able to track. And that's something that that's a decision for the employer to make, something that we talk about to see what's the best case scenario here and what's the easiest really to be able to track and do.
Thank you, Irene. It's very helpful, but of course, I'm sure, we're gonna have more questions, so I'd be happy to defer to you with any of my questions that I have. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.